USA's hit show, The 4400 from years ago, returns this time as an entry on the CW's fall schedule. We also have a couple of lighter things from the Jimmy Fallon production house. Let's talk about TV. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews. Welcome to TV News and Reviews for the week. We've got 6 shows to talk about, including the 4400, like I said, on the CW, a new entry there. Acapulco on Apple TV Plus. 10-Year-Old Tom, an adult animated series on HBO Max, and then 3 more family-friendly options. Pretty Smart on Netflix, and Jimmy Fallon produced Clash of the Cover Bands and The Kids Tonight Show. So before we get into all of that, let's talk about the news. Not really a lot to discuss this week. I keep my eyes peeled every day for new things, but I don't know. I guess a slow week in the industry. So first up, the renewals of the week. We just have one. It's this show called Heels on Stars. It was renewed for season 2. Stephen Amell stars in this from Arrow. And I guess it's a wrestling show. It's a wrestling drama. But I have not seen it. I don't have Stars, so that is one of the networks that I tend not to cover that much on this show. I know there's another show on there called BMF, Black Mafia Family, that is getting some rave reviews. So I don't know. Maybe before the end of the year, I'll do like the 7-day Stars trial and just bang out all the shows that premiered this year that I never got to see. So I don't know much about this show, but I guess they're happy enough with the results. They renewed it for season 2. All right, over to casting news. Law and Order, the 21st season. We've announced that is returning. It finally has a star. Now, there will be people from the old Law and Order popping up. They haven't announced any names for that yet, but they have given us the star of the show, Jeffrey Donovan, who is from Burn Notice, and he was in season 2 of Fargo. So he's going to head up Law and Order season 21. I think that's supposed to premiere, I don't know if it's in the spring or if they're waiting till next fall for it. I'm not actually sure. Maybe next fall for NBC. All right, and then Apple TV, there's a show called High Desert. I think we may have talked about it before. It's with Patricia Arquette, but it finally has rounded out much of its supporting cast. So Ben Stiller is going to produce this, and Jay Roach is going to direct all 8 episodes. And Jay Roach, if memory serves, is the director of Meet the Parents, so there's the Ben Stiller connection. But this is about this addict named Peggy in California who starts over as a PI after the death of her mother. And joining the cast are Matt Dillon, Rupert Friend, Brad Garrett, Christine Taylor, Ben Stiller's ex-wife, and Bernadette Peters. So could certainly be interesting with that top-notch cast. It seems to me maybe Bernadette Peters could be playing the mother. She's certainly of that age that she could play Patricia Arquette's mother, no problem. But if she dies early on, maybe in flashbacks, or maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know, but sounds like an interesting concept anyway, and I like those actors. And then just a few odds and ends, and we'll get right over to the reviews. So there's a Blues Brothers docu-series in the works. There's no studio or network attached to it yet. But this is with Dan Aykroyd and the estate of John Belushi, his ex-wife, his widow. Aykroyd's been kind of making the rounds with interviews in the last week because of this new Ghostbusters movie coming out. So a lot of things are sort of coming out about that. He just recently revealed the favorite movie of his that he's ever done is Coneheads, which it does seem like it should be Blues Brothers or Ghostbusters, right? But whatever. I mean, look, that's a character that he originated on SNL 20 years before the movie, so it makes sense that would be, have sort of a soft spot in his heart for that. But Blues Brothers, look, I'm not a huge fan of John Belushi, so have I ever seen it all the way through? I don't know. I've certainly seen clips of it when I used to run on VH1 every weekend. I've seen, the car chase scene and all that, but I actually don't think I've ever seen the movie in full. But it was selected last year for the National Film Registry, so obviously still has a lot of love behind it 35 years later, I guess. 1980, I think, 40 years later. Yeah, wow. Okay, well, so there you go. And then Dan and Eugene Levy from Schitt's Creek, of course, and the father son duo are now doing dual streaming shows. They have two separate streamers that they have set themselves up with. Eugene is going to do this show called The Reluctant Traveler on Apple TV Plus. They're both sort of reality series. Eugene is so very funny, and I can see him sort of being a uncomfortable, nervous kind of traveler. So that could lend itself to some humor with the reality. And then for Dan Levy, it's going to be a contest show called The Big Brunch on HBO Max. And we see, of course, all these food contests all the time. So he's going to focus on the brunch portion, usually, the Sunday brunches. And it could be interesting. I think of certain foods when I think of brunch, but I'm sure I'm way off on what celebrities eat for brunch. So maybe some of these, real famous. I mean, they're not going to be famous chefs, but from the article I read, it's going to be not amateurs either. People that do this professionally and specifically do brunches professionally. So that kind of thing, undiscovered talent, I guess. And then finally, Mariah Carey is reteaming with Apple TV Plus for a new special called Mariah's Christmas, The Magic Continues. She did a special last year with Apple TV Plus. I did not watch it. I'm not a hater on All I Want for Christmas Is You. I know it's literally the most played Christmas song of the last whatever, it came out at this point. I think this would be maybe not quite the 30th anniversary. It might have been 92 that it got released, or 93. Yeah, I think it was 92. But God, which means next year they're probably going to do some big 30th thing for it. But obviously, in recent years, it has just exploded even further. It really is. I would say in my lifetime, maybe there's a couple from the late 70s, but there's only two, I would say, brand new Christmas songs, like newly written Christmas songs that have become now holiday standards. One is Last Christmas by Wham, and then the other is All I Want for Christmas Is You. And everybody releases Christmas albums, and they all have new music on them, and X, Y, and Z. But for some reason, those are the two that have stuck. And I'm fine with both of them. I'm not a huge Christmas music fan. I don't listen, to Christmas songs on my own, really. If I'm in a store, it certainly doesn't bother me. If it's on the radio, I usually, unless it's an all Christmas station, I will change the station if it's all Christmas. But I'll usually sit there and listen to it. If we have a adult contemporary station that mixes in the Christmas music. The closer we get to the holiday, that's fine. I don't really care about that. But I don't listen to Christmas music. I don't go seek out Christmas specials. So I won't watch this, but. Obviously, Mariah has a huge hit with this song, and she's milking it for every penny that it's worth. This will feature the first performance of a brand new Christmas song called Fall in Love at Christmas, featuring Khalid and gospel singer Kirk Franklin. So if you're into that, if you're into the holiday season and the holiday specials, that will be coming for you this year. On the Apple TV. All right, so like I said, that's it. Short week on news, so let's dive into the reviews. And I don't think any of these are going to take extraordinarily long either. I think this may be one of the shorter news and reviews. But let's talk about the 4400. I'm sorry, there's no the. This differentiates it from the original. This is called 4400 on the CW. And so I ran through the original 4400 show over the last 2 years. I just basically watched like one a week. I wasn't binging it, but so long before this was announced, I started watching it. I have this book called The 1001 TV Shows You Must Watch Before You Die, and I was sort of trying to go through the list alphabetically, and so 4400 came up, and because they have the numbers first, and so I was like, all right, well, whatever, I found it cheap on Amazon, so got it, watched it all the way through, and it's good. I don't think it's, I don't think you need to see this before you die, but okay, it's perfectly fine. It's interesting sci-fi, and for the time, I think it was a bit ahead of its time with its cable. Other than HBO, not a lot of basic cable channels were doing stuff this I don't know, ambitious, I guess. A lot of effects were in this. And anyway, so this is the update on the CW, and the premise is the same. 4,400 people vanish without a trace over the last century. It's not that they're taken all at once. People are taken from all different years, all different areas, and then all of a sudden they are back, having not aged a single day, and no memory there of what has happened to them. So that is the exact premise of the original. They are sticking to the basics here with that. But there are some interesting changes that I think kind of make this a bit of a miss. First of all, look, everything on the CW has to be one of two things. Or sometimes it could be both. So it could be two of two things. Real sexy, with some hot 20-somethings pretending they're 16, or supernatural. And so this combines more of the supernatural element, but there's certainly a few cuties in the mix, but nothing like Riverdale or anything like that. But the main sticking point here is the supernatural angle. Okay, let's tackle that, and that's fine. But unfortunately, everything the CW does, they just, and it's why I don't watch a lot of their shows. They just kill it to death with driving the point home, right? So in this particular show, there is a big air of let's talk about stuff that's current in 2020 and popular to talk about. We hate cops, Black Lives Matter, downtrodden, all of that kind of stuff. And they've just put it in a blender and said, you know what? Let's put this out there and everybody will eat it up because these are the topics of the day. But what it comes across as is a really, really dumbed down version of this show. The original had a lot of sort of political aspirations isn't really the right word, but there was a political motif to it, and maybe as this delves in deeper, we'll get a little more of that. But in the original, it also was a little more spread out on who was taken, and here it's like it seems like 85 to 90% black, and I don't know if they're working their way into building up some kind of, oh, well, it was a conspiracy, against black people. I don't know if they're building up to something or if they just are like, well, let's make this mostly black people, and it's fine, it's whatever, but it's just bizarre that unless they're going to do a specific thing about, okay, this was going after a certain set of people, it just seems odd. And there were a few white people in the mix, but the black families are the only ones we follow, the only ones that get any kind of character development. And then, you have the cop part where, they're being kept in this sort of facility, let's say, because they want to be studied, and let's figure out why you got, kicked out, and then why you're back, and all of that. And all of the, the white cops are, of course, jerks, and whatever. Personally, I don't care about any of that. That's all fine with me. Yes, Black Lives Matter, obviously, I don't care about that, but this is just such pandering. And they're not even really giving anybody character development other than I'm black. Give us something about these people too. It just, I don't know what goes on at the CW in board meetings and stuff, but it seems like they just attach themselves onto whatever the latest trend is, and then they clumsily throw it into a TV show. The original 4,400 just had so many different layers. And it's actually, and I didn't realize this until I watched it, it's where Mahershala Ali, double Oscar winner, really, got his start. And they gave him so much character development. And granted, look, they've only aired 2 episodes of this so far, so maybe they will give us, some more in the future, but it's the CW, so I doubt it. I think they're just gonna, keep repeating the same formula and keep hammering the same points home. Give us layers to the drama. That's all I'm asking. And we haven't really seen a lot of the sci-fi sort of effects yet in this, so I can't really speak to how the effects hold up to the original. I think the original effects look kind of cheesy now, but for 2002, 3, whatever, I think it was fairly cutting edge, especially for basic cable. So, overall, I've never reviewed that series. I think I would probably give that somewhere in the B or B plus range. This misses the mark in most ways, but the premise is still interesting. So if they can do something interesting with it and with the characters, great. But for now, it just seems like a very like we want to just cram all of the hot topics of the day, throw them at you without any sort of intelligent discussion or dialogue or anything. So 4400 for me gets a D plus. All right, so up next, let's talk about Acapulco. This is on Apple TV Plus, and this sort of frightened me from the start because it's based on, or inspired by, I should say, the film How to Be a Latin Lover. And that film I might have given an F to. Like, it's really bad. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to even like this show. Eugenio Derbez, continues his character, Maximo, from that movie. But the good news is it's night and day from the film. Essentially, the movie was a rom-com, and it just wasn't funny. It was pretty bad, actually. But this is... it's sort of two things, because you have the present day stuff, which is Maximo in the present day, played by Eugenio Derbez, and then his son, who he's sort of telling the story to of, here's what life was like in the 80s, here's what life was like growing up, I worked at this resort, and here's how it went. And so the bulk of the show, that's maybe like 10 or 15% of the show. The bulk of the show is the actual 1984 time frame, and Maximo there is played by Enrique Arazon, and it's about really that. So luckily, a lot of the stuff that hampered How to Be a Latin Lover is really absent completely, and this actually has a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit of that Apple TV Plus, Ted Lasso, feel good feel to it. Not to be too redundant, but it's got that sort of uplifting. It's a story of people who maybe are a little bit downtrodden, but they're doing their best. They're working hard, and they are doing whatever it takes to keep their family afloat. And it's funny at the same time, but it has that good heart at its center. And look, Apple TV Plus certainly did not invent that concept. We've been seeing that, for 60 years on television, in pieces. But certainly Ted Lasso was such a revelation, because right now everything is so, either angry or just depressing or whatever. And Lasso gave us this, nice ray of sunshine and some hope. And that's what this show has. It certainly does not measure up to Ted Lasso. I think, we can all agree on that. But and I don't think it's necessarily like trying, like, let's do a Ted Lasso, ripoff. But it's got sort of a similar feel, and I like that. It actually reminds me a bit of a series on Amazon Prime called Red Oaks, that also took place in the 80s at, this particular one was like a private club, like a golf resort, a tennis resort. This is more of a resort, by the poolside and, whatever, in Acapulco. So, the two vary differently there, but they're both sort of about the workers at the resort and, what they are doing for their clients and how they're making ends meet and the friendships they're developing while they're there. So it does remind me a lot of that. If you've never caught that show and you like sort of that 80s nostalgia thing, check that out. It was pretty funny. Paul Reiser played one of the regular patrons of Red Oaks, but this is pretty funny. And again, it's uplifting, and the acting is decent here as well. A lot of these are newcomers, other than Eugenio Derbez. I don't know anybody in the cast. Now, some of these may be. Oh well, the one guy, the one white dude, that is sort of the. He sort of runs the resort, I guess, or a part of it, or he's one of the managers. Cord Overstreet, we've seen him in Glee and a few other things. But in terms of the Latin cast, I don't recognize any of them really, except for Derbez. And so they may be famous on Univision shows or something like that, but to English speaking shows, I think they're mostly new. And I always like that, if the cast kind of gels like that, and they do here. So overall, I think this is a good show, and it's like Ted Lasso. It's a quick, 28 minutes, half hour, whatever. You can bang out a few in an afternoon, no problem. And yeah, I like what I'm seeing here. I give Acapulco a B+. All right, so up next, we're going to go over to HBO Max for an adult animated show called 10-Year-Old Tom. And this is about this kid, Tom, who is voiced by the creator of the show, Steve Dildarian. And he's got some parental issues and some school issues with, most of the adults in his life being kind of dum-dums. And he's just sort of navigating his way. But he's 10, but as they do a lot of times on these shows, he, has the voice of an adult, and he sort of makes pithy comments like an adult, but he's 10. So these shows can sort of go either way, and anymore, when I hear like adult animation, I just sort of cringe, because a lot of it is so bad, and especially with these streamers where they can get away with whatever, and they can say the F word all they want and talk about sex. A lot of them sort of lean into that in lieu of having scripts. To be honest, it was, one of the issues with like Netflix's Hoops, for example, with Jake Johnson. But here, the writing is actually super sharp. I laughed so hard at these first 3 episodes. I really, really enjoyed the show. And I don't know this guy, Steve Dildarian, but he had another show on HBO years ago, and it was animated as well. And his style of animation is kind of, he doesn't animate it, but I mean, I don't think so anyway, but it's his, sort of concept. And the style of both of these shows he's done is harkening back to like a 90s classic, like it looks like sort of Beavis and Butthead or The Critic or something like that, where, people just have, these big odd shaped faces, and the noses are very oddly, specific here in this show. But one of the things this has going for it is it acknowledges throughout that this kid is 10, even though, he's making these sort of sly, pithy comments, and he's got the voice of an adult. He's 10, so whenever somebody suggests things to him or whatever, he's just like, okay, well, like sex. He doesn't really even know about sex yet because he's 10. So, and this show doesn't go really for the dirty. A little bit, yes, John Malkovich plays the coach, and there's a scene that is a little bit bawdy in that regard, but it's not necessarily just going for, let's drop some F-bombs, that'll be the joke. Let's have 10-year-olds say funny, naughty things. No, that's not the joke here. This is a very, very cleverly written show. Funny as hell. I mentioned John Malkovich, but Todd Glass, the comedian, is also part of this. Gillian Jacobs, who we love from the Community days, and even David Duchovny from the old X-Files is a reoccurring actor here as the ice cream man that drives around the Good Humor truck. So I don't know. I mean, what sets this apart from everything else in the adult animated sphere lately is the writing, we just did Harper House on Paramount Plus. That was real bad. I did kind of like Chicago Party Ant on Netflix. I think I gave that like a B. It was pretty funny, but it's again a lot of the same sort of stuff that we always see. Like, let's just curse a lot and put the kids in these odd sexual situations. These kids who are supposed to be 8, 9, 10 years old, and that'll be like the humor. And it really isn't most of the time. You have to be a little more clever than that. And this show does that. So 10-Year-Old Tom, A- for me. I really, really enjoyed this show. So let's go over to Netflix. We've got 3 sort of real family-friendly shows to kind of end the run here. And I mean, I say family friendly. This is TV-14, but for a Netflix sitcom that's not like for little kids, I think this is very family friendly. This is nothing different than you would see on, your Chuck Lorre sitcoms on CBS. Yeah, there's some sexual humor, but people aren't cursing. It's fun for the whole family. But is it any good? Let's decide that. So Emily Osment is the star of this, and this is. I know she's done a little work here and there, but I think this is kind of her main featured role since Hannah Montana. She played the best friend on that back in the day, and I always liked her. She is Haley Joel Osment's sister, if you recognize the last name, but she is a brilliant woman. She graduated from Harvard. She mentions it all the time, of course, but she's an aspiring novelist and is sort of having a little bit of a dry spell. And until her novel gets published, she's sort of, hanging in the balance there with money. So she ends up moving in with her sister and her sister's buddies and working at this gym. And everything's really, really laid out in that premiere episode. You can't really mistake what's happening. But this is a multi-camera comedy, so you'll get this. I mean, the first episode has to set up the entire premise, and it takes, usually 25 minutes to get there. Sure, let's do that. So that's what happens here. So I watched 3 episodes of this, and it really did remind me of a Chuck Lorre sitcom on CBS. And that can be a good or a bad thing, but I think this is more on that positive side. My biggest issue with the show, I guess, is that the characters, other than her, are all just complete dummies. It's like a house full of Joeys from Friends. And then she, of course, is very smart, but not street smart. So, she is a little bit of a dummy there. So, look, the concept is very, very basic. We're not reinventing anything here. We are sticking to like classic sitcom tropes, classic sitcom setups. But look, I say this all the time, almost whenever I review one of these multi-camera shows. It can still be done well. It just so happens that a lot of writers and stuff are just lazy about it. And so the networks pick up these just basic shows, and every year they keep trying. And not many of them stick. The Connors on ABC, I think, got real lucky because it was a Roseanne reboot. And so it sort of had that built in, okay, well, this is what we expect from this show. But other than some of the CBS comedies, I can't think of any on any of the other major networks or even cable that have that multi-camera, feel to it. And CBS is almost running out of them because Mom, is over, Big Bang Theory is over, and even Young Sheldon, the Big Bang Theory spinoff, is not with a laugh track. But they still have like Be Positive, and there's a couple other ones on there. But, Ghosts, their newest show, is single camera. So even they're sort of seeing the way out of this. But I actually think this is a pretty funny show. Netflix has given us a couple of, I think, pretty funny multicams. The Crew with Kevin James was one. And it's because they stick to this classic formula. The ones I don't care for on Netflix really are the ones who are like, oh, we're on Netflix. We can, and I don't want to sound like this, I don't know, broken record about I don't like swearing. Dude, in my personal life, I swear all the time. So it has nothing to do with that, but it's the writing. If you think saying the F word is funny, and that's like the punchline, that's not a punchline. You have to have writing with it. And I think the other part of this show is the ensemble. A show like this needs a healthy ensemble. Emily Osment, I don't think they're utilizing her well enough because she proved in Hannah Montana she's actually really adept at physical comedy. A lot of those old Nickelodeon and Disney shows, they have their characters doing pratfalls and stuff like that. Utilize this girl's talent a little bit more because she's very, very funny with physical comedy. So we're not quite seeing that part of it, but her comic timing is good. And the sister, who is Olivia Macklin, don't really know her, but she's pretty funny too. They have a nice little sparring thing together. So overall, I think this could be improved upon, but for the multicam sitcoms that are out today, this is not bad. I'm going to leave Pretty Smart with a B-. All right, so finally we close with 2 Jimmy Fallon produced shows, Clash of the Cover Bands and The Kids Tonight Show. I'm going to do them one at a time because they're very different shows. But yeah, both of them are from Jimmy Fallon's production company, and he actually is the first guest on The Kids Tonight Show. But first, we're going to talk about Clash of the Cover Band, something that is a little more near and dear to my heart. And this is a reality competition, 2 bands each episode of similar music genre go head to head against each other. And some of them are established as, we play bars as this band all the time. And sometimes it's, oh, well, this is just, a hobby. I like to dress up as this person on Halloween or, whatever. So we're getting sort of all kinds here. But basically, they will perform for the judges, which are Meghan Trainor, Esther Dean, and Adam Lambert. And then they get critiqued a little bit. And then they go and meet with someone, one of their professionals. And the judges basically tell them, okay, we think you need work on this. You're going to meet with this person. So sometimes it could be a movement coach. Sometimes it could be a vocal coach. Sometimes it is more of, in the costume design, and that kind of thing. And then they come back and do this head-to-head where they're doing like 20 seconds at a time of their singers, big hits. So the first episode was Stadium Rocker, so it was Coldplay versus U2. Second show was I don't know what they called it, but it was like the big divas of the 70s or whatever. It was Tina Turner versus Cher. And so each winner of the head-to-head then will come back later to do like a big sort of I don't know how many they're going to have, but a big, sort of contest within that. And then the winner of that gets 10 grand and they get to perform live on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. So, all right, makes sense. And this is hosted by, I forget his name, but it's Ellen's like DJ, Stephen Twitch Boss. And this is sort of the first time I've really seen him outside of Ellen, I guess, but I know he originated on So You Think You Can Dance. But I think the show's okay. The least inspired part to me is the panel, because Adam Lambert's great. And, as the lead singer of Queen, basically, at this point, I know Queen has all the original members, but look, Freddie Mercury died 30 years ago. So Adam Lambert, the last decade or so, has been the lead singer of Queen. And essentially, he is basically just doing a Freddie Mercury. They're not writing new material. So he's perfect for this. But the other two, I just feel are kind of used up. Like Esther Dean is already a judge on this show called Songland on NBC, which is about writing songs. And she is a songwriter, so that's more in her wheelhouse. But, I don't know that we need her to judge this. And then Meghan Trainor, I just reviewed her on some cooking show on Peacock. Family Top Chef or something like that. Top Chef Family Style, that's what it is. And so we just saw her with that, and she was a guest on Songland. Obviously, this is all produced by the Songland people, I guess. But yeah, I think the judges' table is a bit uninspired here, their choices. I think Adam Lambert was a good choice. The other two, I would have swapped out. And Stephen Boss, he's fine as the the host. He keeps it all flowing. It's fine. But I don't know. I think it's kind of an interesting concept to have the cover bands come in and then sort of get tweaked a little bit. Like, what's funny is the first episode, U2, they had been doing clubs and stuff, like little dive bars in local towns for like 20 years or something. And so when Adam Lambert was like, oh, you need to go see a movement coach so, Bono and the Edge can kind of get, little side to side there and move in unison with each other, it like made them a whole different band. It was really interesting to see a band that's been doing the same thing for 20 years, sort of transform like that. So, I feel like win or lose, the people that are on this show are going to improve their game a little bit. So I think that's cool. Look, cover bands to me are kind of whatever. I've seen a couple in my day. I saw Guns N' Roses cover band once, and they're fine. But of course, it's not the real thing, but you want to get as close as you can. Some of these people do get pretty close, I think. It's very interesting. And of course the music is great because they're doing all these, famous songs. I just wish the panel was tweaked a little bit. I don't think they had as many interesting things to say as I would have liked, because a lot of it is just the gushing. Adam Lambert's the only one that kind of says to him, like, look, you need to work on this. And he's not a Simon Cowell about it, but the girls are just like kind of fawning over the bands, and it's like some of them to me weren't all that good. I would have, critiqued a lot more. So I give Clash of the Cover Bands a B minus. It was okay. Um, and then finally, the Kids Tonight Show. Now, look, I think Jimmy Fallon is about the worst interviewer that's ever been on late night television. He is awful. But the one thing that he's good at on the Tonight Show, I mean, his monologues are good too, so I can't deny that. But in terms of the interviewing, but the games that he plays are so fun, so infectious, and the skits are okay, and his, compatibility with the Roots crew, specifically Questlove, all that stuff is great. But I can't watch the Tonight Show because he's the worst interviewer out there. But all right, so what happens with the Kids Tonight Show? Well, right away, two of the four kids I recognized. One I like and one I don't like. The one I don't like is that stupid young Dylan from the Young Dylan Show on Nickelodeon. I failed that show last year. I stand by my F. It stinks. We actually, it was Nickelodeon was playing when we were on vacation in July, and my nephew wasn't really watching it. He was playing on his iPad, but it was on because whatever the show before was on. But Young Dylan came on, and within 5 minutes, everybody, even my 10-year-old nephew, was like, "This sucks. Like, what are we doing here watching this?" So I hate Young Dylan. But the gal from Mixed-ish, which is now canceled, so she's a little more freed up. She's one of the girls on here as well. Michael, I'm not sure if it's Michael or Michael, but it's Mykal. Michelle Harris. So I recognize her right away. And then the other two kids, I didn't really recognize. I looked into them a little bit to see, kind of what their history is. But Olivia Perez and then Wrecker Eanes are the other two. And Wrecker not only is part of the interviewing crew, but he plays drums. So he is what we see as the band. I'm sure there's musicians, behind the curtain there backing him that are adults, but he can tear it up on the drums. And then when they're doing little monologue jokes, the other three kids, he does rim shots. It's actually really kind of cute. But Jimmy Fallon was their first guest. So of course the first episode really was just like a Tonight Show, do-over. But then the next episode with JoJo Siwa was a bit different. But they interview for like 3 or 4 minutes. It's not long. And then they play some classic games. This is a half-hour version, so it's not the full show, of course. On the real show, Jimmy has, typically 3 guests. Here, it's just one main guest. They do the monologue. They interview them for a little bit, and then they do their game. There's a couple of real forced moments with this, including like they have a secret phrase, and oh, surprise, surprise, they always say the secret phrase right at the end of the show, and that's when the balloons come down and it's a party, and that is really annoying. I don't know. It's hard to tell what kids like these days with the TikTok generation and everything, but it just seems like overkill and annoying, and I get that it's for kids. But I will say, I actually really like JoJo Siwa now, by the way. When she was on Masked Singer, I barely knew who she was. I had heard about her like that week from a friend of mine whose daughter was into it. And then she was on the Masked Singer, and I was like, okay, well, this girl's annoying and whatever. But she's on Dancing with the Stars now, which I don't watch, but she's been doing like the interview circuit because of that, and it's a big deal that she's come out as bisexual, and she's going to be the first same-sex couple on Dancing with the Stars, so that was obviously a big deal. But I love that they have a kids show where someone is talking openly about being in a relationship with a girl. I like, a lesbian relationship. I think that's amazing. As a gay man who, in the 90s, oh my God, when Ellen came out, it was you would have thought a nuclear bomb went off. Like, the fact that they have now a show that is geared for like 8-year-olds, that they just have JoJo Siwa, oh yeah, me and my girlfriend, love that. It doesn't factor into my grade at all. It's just more of a commentary on, kids programs are cool with doing that today. Nickelodeon, Disney, a lot of their shows have gay characters now, and it's just really cool to see. But I think this group of kids does have a pretty good chemistry with each other. And look, the most fun part about the Tonight Show these days is the games. You know, Carson didn't do any of that stuff. He was a good interviewer. But Fallon, he's better at the games, and that's where that show, I think, really shines. And that's where this show really shines too. I would say they spend almost half their time playing the games with the guest, and I think that's probably a good idea. When I saw young Dylan, I really didn't want to like this, but turns out it's actually pretty cute and pretty funny. I'm gonna leave the Kids Tonight Show with a B. All right, so that will do it. I'm not sure this is my shortest one, but 40 minutes, is shorter than usual. So we'll leave it there. I'm trying to think of what's coming out in the next couple of weeks. I know there's all these shows that have premiered in the last week and a half or so that I haven't gotten to yet. Oh, the big one is the new Judge Judy show, Judy Justice, on IMDb TV. So we'll tackle that next week, among some other things on mostly streamers. I think the broadcast networks are done for at least a few weeks now. But all right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.